Hey besties, welcome back to the channel. Long time no see. It has been a while since I've uploaded a video. That's not to say that I haven't been filming videos. I was filming shit. I was filming videos of myself and then I felt cringe and embarrassed and I never edited them. Or when I was in the process of editing them, I hated it. Disgusting. Wanted to gag every time I looked at myself. That might just be my own personal self-esteem issues talking, but I've started filming this at 9:05 on a Friday night when other people will be out partying with the gals. I decided to stay in, talk to a camera about the books I've read this year. I don't know if people are aware of this really cool website that you can use to track any of the books that you've read and create a community of other people who also like to read books. It's called goodreads.com. You ever heard of it? You ever used it? Look, I'm sorry for being facetious. I'm sure that everyone knows Goodreads, but some people don't know Goodreads, and sometimes give you recommendations. Not always. It feels like the algorithm's a little bit off. For me, in particular, with the kind of books that I've been reading, I feel like the recommendations that it's giving me are just the ones that are popular on TikTok and the ones that are really heavily being pushed by whatever marketing company is wanting to push a certain genre of books. I'm talking fantasy, I'm talking dark romance. It's not really the kind of thing that I'm into. Tangent about Goodreads recommendations aside, if you are truly unaware of Goodreads, you can basically track the books that you've been reading, but they also have a yearly sort of challenge that you can sign up for. You don't pay anything, it just helps you sort of track what you've read in that year. But it'll be like a yearly reading challenge where you'll say, I want to read X amount of books in the year, and then as you log your books, it'll say, congrats, you're one book ahead of schedule. Congrats, you've completed the reading challenge that you've set yourself this year. Oh no, you're 9 books behind schedule. And turns out it's going to be the end of the year soon. Last year for 2023, I set myself a goal of reading 30 books in that year, and I was able to like smash it. So for 2024, when it came time to set myself a reading challenge for 2024, I thought, I smashed 30 out of 30 books last year. Let me go above and beyond that 30 books and let me set myself a goal of 45 books. Let's just say we're in the first week of December now, and I'm definitely nowhere near anywhere close to finishing that friggin' reading challenge. So I think I'm just proud to say that for 2024, I've failed my reading challenge. Last year was the first time that I succeeded in my reading challenge. This year, I've gone back to my usual pattern of failing my reading challenge. With all that being said, what I do want to go through is go through the books that I have read this year and discuss them with you guys. So I had set myself that goal of the 45 books this year. I was only able to do 30 so far. Again, today is the 5th of December, and I am like halfway through reading one book. I might discuss it in this list, but so if you want to sit with me and listen to me yap about the books that I've read this year, and I'm not going to be talking about them from an academic standpoint or anything like that because I'm not qualified to do so. I'm not smart enough to do so. I am purely just going to be talking about my feelings and my vibes when reading these books, okay? If from any of these books you feel as if you have a recommendation that I might like based on the books that I've read, please, please let me know. This isn't just like some sort of way for me to like fish comments and engagements from people. I literally need I want book recommendations so freaking bad because like my little gripe at the beginning about the Goodreads recommendation systems, I don't like the Goodreads recommendation system, and I don't know, I would prefer it from someone, a real person saying, if you like this, then you might like this. I don't give a shit. Okay, let me just start. This is what I'm at right now, okay? 30 books out of 45 books. First book that I read this year was The Bedroom Window by K.L. Slater. I think you could probably tell from the cover and the vibe that the cover is kind of giving what the kind of vibe of the book itself is. But apparently, looking back at Goodreads, I rated this a 2 star. Don't know why exactly, but The Bedroom Window is about like a young-ish kind of family, like a couple, a married couple, and their young son. The husband ends up getting like this job as like a groundskeeper for this mansion, and like one of the benefits of having this groundskeeper job, you get to live like on a cabin or a cottage kind of thing, like on the property, but not like directly next to the property. It's like at the bottom of the hill, and this wife is kind of going on about like, oh, the couple, the no, the married couple up on the hill, they like say that they don't have a child. But who's that I see in the window? Is that their child? Why have I never met that person who's up in the window? This is such a small town. I should know that person in the window. That's definitely not the wife. What's going on? Unfortunately, I didn't give like a review, and I didn't keep my own sort of record to say like what I thought about any of the books as I read them. But I read this one just because I do like a little bit of thriller, kind of like a mystery kind of thing. But I feel like the mystery side of things just kind of like felt flat. And like when it was supposed to have a twist and be like, oh, that's the person in the window. Um, it fell flat for me. I don't really care. Next one. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This also is like another book that was like mystery thriller based. It's two people or two women, I guess, who both meet on their 45th birthdays. And it's like a podcast host and like a dowdy woman. Like the podcast host is like 45 and she's thriving and she's like, woo, I'm having my birthday party out here at the pub. Woo. And this like little dowdy, creepy lady is like, oh my God, you're out here in the pub celebrating your birthday? It's also my birthday. We could be birthday twins. And then the little dowdy, frumpy lady cons her way into being like interviewed, I guess, for this lady's podcast. And then it turns out, oh, the daddy frumpy lady is ugly. And she's ugly because she's a bad person. And she reveals it during the podcast. That's what I remember, at least. I like this twist. I thought this book was interesting. I think I liked it at the time. I don't think I need to reread it, but it was entertaining at least. The next one I read, I technically listened to the audiobook of it, sorry, but it was The Rise by Ian Rankin. It is just categorized as a short story, and I think listening to like the audiobook of it, it was like maybe in like an hour or 2 hours or something like that. I think it was included as part of like a Kindle membership. You could like download it for free and it wouldn't use any of your Kindle credits. I have a cat hair on my face. It is only a short story, so if you think of it still in like the mystery sort of genre, if you think of like a whole book as a whole season arc of a crime procedural TV show, this book or like this short story would just kind of be like one episode in that season, if it makes sense. But it's basically like a crime happens in this high rise building, but no one's been in or out since the freaking security locked the building down. Who is it? What was their motive? And that was fun. It was short. It was sweet. Again, it was like a little episode of a little TV show, and I liked it. Oh wow! Hello. Okay, the next book I yeah, hi. Sorry, he's just gonna hang out. Yeah, baba. The next book that I read was Let Me In by Claire McGowan. Again, mystery thriller, kind of in the same sort of vibe as like K.L. Slater. I'm sure you can tell from the cover. It sort of follows that like dark vibe where everything's in like a blue tone. It's like spooky. It's scary. It's not that spooky, but it's like ooh creepy. Oh, this one as well was like a young couple who move to like a cottage in the countryside and then creepy things start happening. What could it be? What was this? I don't remember the ending of it, to be honest. Oh no, I do remember it. Yeah, no, that one. I think these books are like silly, but they're fun entertainment for me. Big Swiss, Jen Began. Big Swiss by Jen Began. I feel like the girlies, the girlies have been talking about this book. It's a book about a person who does transcript writer for a sex counselor or like a sex therapist. She basically listens to these audio transcripts of people telling like their weirdest, deepest sexual traumas or deepest sexual fantasies, and it'll be like couples talking about it. But then she'll be like writing up these transcripts while she is in public, like at the cafe, and she'll be like, "Oh, I recognize that person who just placed a coffee order. He's the guy who likes to wear like adult diapers." She ends up falling in love with one of the people that she like listens to those transcripts, and she's writing those transcripts, and like it's kind of creepy. She like ends up lying about her name. She like lies to the patient when she's like trying to be like, oh, what? Look at this meet cute. I definitely don't know every deep, dark secret about you. And then trying to like form an authentic kind of relationship. I felt as if there was so much like dread that I felt throughout the story of like, when is the patient gonna find out that like that's not her real name, that's not her real life? Like, I don't know, it filled me with like an immense amount of dread, and it was very interesting for me. The next book that I read was The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. I'm sorry, butchered it. Never heard him say his name out loud. I feel like I watched The Virgin Suicides when I was like a teenager. Shouldn't have watched that movie then. Book itself is like written from the perspective of like the grown men who are recounting or looking back on these teen girls from their childhood and like how sad their life was and how these girls ended up taking their lives. But oh my god, while the girls were still at school, we wanted to boink them, we wanted to touch them, we wanted to kiss them. The perspective itself, you're reading it from the perspective of a grown man or grown men, I guess, like a group of them who are recounting the biggest crushes of their lives and the girls that they wish they touched their boobies of, but they're reminiscing about like 14, 15, like teenage girls from their childhood. Kind of weird. If you're, what the frick? Don't put that. I don't like. I moving on from the veggie suies, we I ended up reading like a non-fiction book for that's called The Day the World Stopped Shopping: How Ending Consumerism Saves the Environment and Ourselves by J.B. McKinnon. The book itself is very eye-opening if that's something that compels you, but it's very hard for me to sort of live. I don't know what is it? What is the thing where you have like a, is it a dichotomy? No, something to do with like your brain, cranium obsolescence. No, false dichotomy. Like it definitely made me feel like, damn, it's very bad for me to be shopping, and damn all this plastic, and how it's contributing to greenhouse gases and everything like that. And then I remember Mama loves shiny new thing. Um, and I think that's just something that I need to train my sort of ADHD brain to not only find happiness from shiny new thing, so that I can take in the information from the book itself and use that in my life, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to live with it. Moving on from the slightly depressing book about consumerism, the next book I read was The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. It was like book number one in the collector series. I haven't read the other books. I didn't care for it. The Butterfly Garden, I remember Stephanie Sue did like a mystery baking a murder on it, and I was like intrigued. So I did give it a go. But I feel like the actual premise of it is silly. It's basically just about these girls who get like kidnapped and abducted, and it's like a real weird, creepy old guy who will like tattoo butterfly wings on their back, and then when he ends up killing them, or like they reach a certain age, he'll kill them because they're like past their prime or whatever. And he wants to like immortalize their beauty, so he'll like case them in resin or like formaldehyde or something, and have like their back tattoos of the butterfly wings basically like cut out and like displayed on them, kind of thing. Like the premise was interesting, but like very unbelievable. It felt very unrealistic. I know that it's a story, but like, I don't know, I want a little bit of realism in my thrillers. The next books that I read was Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This was like another uh crime thriller, what? Mystery thriller type thing, about two girls. One of them ends up dead, and then like um the other girl like can't remember a single thing about what happened that night. Oh, but they're best friends. It's basically like set up like podcast episodes as if it was like serial, like the serial podcast series when that first came out. And they were like uncovering the truth. It's like a guy trying to uncover the truth about like what really happened that night. And I thought it was interesting and I liked it. The next book that I read was another one by Claire McGowan, which was I Know You. It was again thriller, mystery. I kind of liked it. I think I liked it. I don't have that many thoughts on it. Like I liked it. Let me read the blurb again. Basically, like this character goes on a walk with her dog and finds like a dead body in the woods, and it turns out to be her boyfriend's estranged wife or something like that. Um, and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be the prime suspect because like I found the body and I was like having like an affair with this woman's husband, even though they're separated, they're estranged, blah blah blah. Um, and oh no, this isn't even the first time that I've been accused of murder because when I was 19, I was accused of murdering a whole family in Los Angeles, and I've just tried to friggin' build my life back up again over here in England, back home. Um, yeah, it was interesting. I liked it. The next book that I read was Strangers by Taichi Yamada. I'm sorry, it is a Japanese author, and it was translated by Wayne P. Lammers. Um, it's fun. I liked it. It was like kind of short. It does make me want to like I guess read more Japanese authors. In the story itself is like kind of like I don't know. It's like a middle aged guy who's like in a weird spot in his life. He like lost his job or lost his wife or something. He lost his he got divorced and I think he's losing his job, and then like he finds out that like his boss best friend is now dating his wife, and so he starts like on a whim just like visiting his hometown, ends up like seeing like the ghosts of his parents or something like that. And I don't know, it was really like interesting. It was made into a movie. I don't exactly remember the name of it, but it was made into a movie with two hotties, the hot priest. I think the hot priest guy and Paul Mescal. I haven't watched the movie, but I would be interested in it. I think I would read the book again and then watch the movie because I know that like obviously one of the major changes was that like the love interest, it instead of being like a straight couple love interest, it became like a gay love interest, which I think is cute. But yeah, I would recommend it. I strongly recommend it. I think it's really nice and short. It's sweet. It's fun. The next book I read, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Okay. Granted, I didn't read it. I did listen to the audiobook of it, but the audiobook version was read itself and like voice acted by Donna Tartt, the bloody author herself. And oh my god, I think this is going to have to be a book that I do actually like physically read the actual words, and then maybe I would get the hype. But listening to this author read back her own audiobook, like read back her own work, at points it sounded like she was bored of reading it. Like there were passages that she was reading, like the delivery, the performance of her voice acting for this story was like so fucking, she sounded bored with herself. And I'm like, babe, you wrote this. Why do you sound bored? If you're supposed to be the one who's like selling the audience on the magnificence of your work and you sound bored, then I'm bored. Then I'm annoyed. You sound annoyed at your own price. If you've thought about listening to the audiobook and you find it on like Audible or at your library or I think Spotify, they do like audiobooks now. If the only version that you see there says that it's like performed by Donna Tartt herself, don't listen to it. I don't think it would be worth it for you. In my humble opinion, I think they should have gotten like a proper voice actor to do that book because I think a proper voice actor would have done it justice and they wouldn't be reading it as if it was a fucking slog to read. Next book that I read was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and I think this has been recently made into like either a movie or a TV series on Apple TV. Haven't. It felt very rushed at the end. It's like a sci-fi type book about like the multiverse essentially. Like this guy is like a physicist professor at a university in Chicago. Let me read the blurb before I give away stuff. Basically, the main character goes out one night to pick up like ice cream for his family, and he ends up being like mugged on the way home. And this guy has like a knife, no, gun to his head. And stuff like that, like in the back of the car. And the guy ends up like drugging him. And then when he wakes up, he's like in the same place that he was like drugged, which was like this weird abandoned warehouse, but like when he wakes up, the warehouse itself is like a full laboratory kind of like facility kind of thing. And everyone's like, whoa, welcome back, you made it back. And he's like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, you've been gone for 18 months. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean? I fell asleep, I was drugged here last night, and now you're telling me I was gone for 18 months? What the fuck do you mean? And it turns out he had been kidnapped by an alternate universe version of himself, and then it's like his journey trying to get back to his reality. The way that they like explained the universe multiverse jumping kind of thing, I'm not smart enough to understand whether or not that is real. Like, who's to say whether or not the multiverse itself is real? Like, but the way that they like jump through the different universes and stuff like that, I don't know if that could be like theoretically kind of possible, but it was very interesting. It was entertaining, but then I feel like the ending itself felt very rushed, and I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like a book in a series, like the first book in a series. Like the ending itself, like obviously it was wrapped up, but I felt dissatisfied at the speed of which it was wrapped up, kind of thing. The next book that I read was Roots by Diz Tate. I think this was supposed to be like their debut novel. I didn't like this. Nah, I didn't like it at all. It felt as if someone was like trying to write about the kind of lives of people who live in like the Ethel Cain fictional universe. Like if you've listened to Ethel Cain's music, it felt as if they were trying to write characters that would like live in freaking the American teenager type life. And it felt like a whole lot of nothing at the same time. Like I felt like I couldn't really understand the story. I didn't really get it. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to get it. I don't care. I didn't like it. The next book I read was another one by Claire McGowan, another one of them little silly thriller mystery type things. I actually really enjoyed this one. It was basically like a group of friends from uni who are like all grown up now. Some of them have like kids of like varying kind of ages, but it's like a group of them. They all go away on like this holiday. They go to this like little secluded island off of Scotland or whatever. Um, and while they're away, like at this place on this secluded island with like no phone reception, there's no Wi Fi, it's just going to be a fun little weekend away with the friend group and our kids. Weird, don't bring the kids. Um, yeah, they end up like playing like a drinking game kind of thing where they put like two truths and a lie in a hat, but someone like wrote something but like someone's gonna die. They're like, oh my god, who wrote that? Who wrote that? What is that, a lie? Is that the truth? And then like a bunch of people end up dying, and it's so interesting. I liked it. It was really fun. I really liked this one. This was a good one, Claire. And then next, I went through my Lucy Foley phase. So first, I had the Midnight Feast. The Midnight Feast. I think this was like one of her newer ones that was like released this year, if I'm not wrong. It's like it's supposed to be like the opening night of like this lodge, this manor, this like accommodation, like a luxury accommodation, with like all these different like luxury cabins, and it's like the opening night. They're supposed to have like these festivities, and it's someone dies, someone ends up getting murdered. Um, and again, it's like, oh my god, who did it? Oh my god, there's all these different people with different motives. Who could have done it? Oh, there's also this like group of local people who are upset at this rich person coming in and building like luxury accommodations in like a poor town. How dare they? Ah, there's so many people with different motives to kill them. Oh my god, I liked it. This was interesting. This was fun. I don't remember the twist exactly, but I do remember having a good time with it. The next Lucy Foley books that I read was another one of those things where it's, oh, a bunch of college friends and their partners go away to a friggin', I feel like a lot of these books have like the same sort of common thread. I don't know. It's like the same sort of concept as like the other one. What was it? Truth, lie kind of thing. Not really. But it's still the same sort of like this group of people who were friends from uni and now they're all grown up and they have like all these tensions within the friend group, and they go away to a secluded place for a holiday. It's for New Year's. It's over the New Year Christmas period, and oh my god, there's like a Jack the Ripper like killer on the loose, and then one of our friends dies. oh my god, who could it be? What was the motive? That kind of thing. It was entertaining. I liked it. And then the last Lucy Foley book that I read was The Guest List. And again, this was another one that Stephanie Sue did a baking a mystery, baking a murder on. Um, guys, who could guess the plot of this book? A group of friends go to a secluded place to celebrate a wedding. Oh, you thought it was just going to be like a fun little getaway. No, they're getting away for a wedding. So it's a whole bunch of like friends from college and everything like that, friends from school who are getting together, and then someone dies. And I think I remember the book itself would like cut back and forth between like the before the murder and like after the murder, and like it was sort of slowly trickling to you, like you didn't exactly know who the victim was, so like you're reading the before parts being like, oh my god, that person's a dick, maybe they're the person that end up murdered, but that person's also a dick, maybe they are the ones that got murdered. And then you find out who got murdered and you find out why they got murdered. And yeah, it was interesting and entertaining, and I liked it. The next book that I read was actually a reread. This was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I reread this one because I think I was like sick one week, like for a couple of days, and I was sick off of work. So I ended up watching the Sharp Objects series. Yeah, I watched the series and I was like, huh, I wonder, I can't remember if the book was like really like this. Um, and then I like reread the book and I was like, oh, the book's just like, the book is still so good, especially like on a reread, because I think I had like read it maybe 2 or 3 years ago, so I kind of forgot like the intricacies of what happens. But yeah, I really liked it. It's a Gillian Flynn, you can't go wrong. Next one that I read, another mystery thriller. It was What Happened to Nina by Dervla McTiernan. Sorry, I liked this. I like this. This is about like a young girl who ends up dead. And I think her like, I don't remember where in the story her body ends up getting, like when in the story, I guess her body ends up getting found, but they find her body at like her boyfriend's like family's cabin or something like that. And the story follows like the mum trying to find out like what the fuck happened to my daughter. Like she can't just show up dead on your friggin' property. And it's like, yeah, it's about like the two different families, I guess, trying to like, one family trying to figure out what happened exactly to their daughter, and then the other family trying to protect their son, I guess, from any accusations of murder. And yeah, I really liked it. It was interesting and fun and entertaining, and I would recommend it. The next book I read was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. This is the first Dolly Alderton book that I read. I didn't like it. Sorry. Sorry. It's about like a dude. I think for like the majority of the story, we end up like following the dude who's like just been broken up with, and he's lamenting about his breakups, and he goes through like all the past girlfriends. Um, and then the dude himself is supposed to be like a fucking comedian, like a stand up comedian. Nothing in the fucking book is funny. Like, I understand why like a lot of writers will write a character who the character is a writer, because they're writing what they know. Dolly Alderton, I don't think I've ever seen your stand up comedy. So why would you make your main character a stand up comedian? And then it's like, any sort of, you don't show me that he is a comedian. He tells us that he's a comedian, and he's like a D-list comedian. He's only booking so many sort of gigs. His friends are booking these gigs, and he's like so jealous of them. But we don't see any of the actual comedy content. We don't see any of the stand-up routines or anything like that to show us why he should be seen as like any sort of level comedian. So I don't know. I don't think that the if you wanted it to be like, oh, this freaking character, he got broken up with because he's a fucking dud. He's a fucking dud. You could have made him like any other career than a comedian. And if you were going to make him a comedian, you should have put actual effort into showing us that he was a comedian, rather than just fucking telling us he's a comedian. Even if he was going to be a failed comedian, write bad jokes. Write it so that he bombs every night. Right? Like, I don't know. I didn't like this one. The next book that I read was All I Said Was True by Imran Mahmood. This one was interesting. This one is weird. It was like a mystery. You end up like meeting this woman who's like in a police interrogation thing, and she's like basically not telling the police anything. And I'm like, you sound so sus. You're telling me that all that you said is true, but I feel like you're leaving out a lot of stuff. But basically, like this woman ends up murdered, and it's like, well, why were you following this woman? I don't know. I don't know. It was entertaining. It felt as if there was like a deeper conspiracy supposed to be in the story itself, where like the main character, she's like losing her marbles a little bit, and she's like built this conspiracy around the murder victim so that when the victim ends up getting murdered, it causes suspicion on that main character. But like, I feel like we could have gone more into the conspiracy and had like that kind of wrapped up. But maybe it did, maybe I just don't remember. But it was entertaining, but I'm not sure if I liked it. I would probably give the author like another chance if I see anything else that they have written. Um, but yeah, I didn't love this one. The next book that I read, I actually don't remember a single. I do remember things about it, but like I don't remember a lot about it. But it was "I Found You" by Lisa Jewell, another Lisa Jewell for this year. It's basically like a woman who lives on the British seaside. She ends up finding a man like on the British seaside on the beach, right? And she's like, "Oh my goodness, you're gonna catch it! You're gonna catch a fucking death! It's so cold out here with the British seaside, and it's winter. You gonna fucking die. Come on in." And he's like, "Oh, thank you for your hospitality." And she's like, "Oh, no worries, love. What's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, frick, I don't remember my name. I don't have any ID on me." And then it's like a mystery to be like, "Oh, who is this guy? Who is this man? What a frig?" And then I think like their lives are supposed to have crossed somewhere over the rainbow, like somewhere in their past. Their paths had crossed in the past. I think I found it interesting and it was entertaining, but I don't remember anything else about it. The next book I read was Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut. I remember loving Kurt Vonnegut when I was like 19, 18. Like a young adult kind of thing, and I was like, damn, this shit's so fucking deep. This shit's so fucking good. And I feel like for the longest time I've said like Kurt Vonnegut is like my favorite author. Do you remember liking this book? It This was like a reread for me. I remember reading it once before, and then from what I remember from the story, it was about a man who is in a prison. He used to work for the bad guys in World War II, and he was a part of like the propaganda machine, like a part of their propaganda um, department. And he was like once a playwright before the war began, and now he's, you know, locked up, and he's like retelling his story. And then I think he gets released, and he ends up, yeah, he's released, and then they end up like presenting him with like, oh, this was your wife during the war. This was your nursery wife from the war. Don't you love her? And he's like, that doesn't look like my wife, but I think it's my wife. I don't really remember. And we don't have social media, so I can't look back at my Instagram photos of my wife to remember whether or not this is exactly my wife or not. It turns out to be like his wife's younger sister. I think maybe his wife was dead, but it was like her younger sister, who was like 9 years old when they were like married. She was like, "Oh, I had such a big crush on you when I was a little baby, when I was a little girl, and now I get to love you as an adult." A little bit weird. A little bit weird. Don't tell me anything bad about Kurt Vonnegut. I do enjoy his books, and I do plan on reading more of them. The next book I read was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a book that everyone loves, and you know there's a lot of hype about it. I don't understand it. It's a good story, I guess. It follows two people throughout their whole lives from their childhood up until adulthood who bond over their love of video games, and they end up like working in the video game industry. Um, I liked it. It was cool. It was fine. We are nearing into like the final 5 books that I've read this year. This doesn't mean that they're great. It just means that I've read them. These are the last 5 books I've read. The next book I read was High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. I have like owned a copy of this book for years and I had just never read it. Classic. Everyone does that. And it's also been, I think, made into a movie and also like recently a TV series with Zoe Kravitz. I haven't watched either of them, but the book is about a guy who again gets broken up with. It's similar, it reminds me of Good Material by Dolly Alderton, where we follow like a man who has been broken up with and he laments over his past relationship, and then he goes through and like considers all of the past relationships that he's had throughout his whole life and every girl that he's ever met and how he's liked them and how he's kissed them and blah blah blah, everything like that. If I had been alive when this book was released, and then maybe I could get like a better understanding of like I guess the cultural significance of any of like the musical, like obviously the musical artists do have cultural significance now, like lasting power, but I feel like if I was able to be in the zeitgeist at that time and read that book at that time, and like know any of the artists that they were mentioning and like know the music that they're referring to, I think I would have enjoyed it more. It was good. It was nice. I liked it. Okay, the next book I read was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I had read Normal People last year, I think. And I think I liked it. It was like, a whole bunch of meandering conversations between two people. And I was like, yeah, cool, that's fine. I liked it. It was pleasant. And then with Conversations with Friends, it's basically about like this uni student who's like early 20s, I think. And she ends up having like an affair with this actor dude who's like in his 30s and he's married. And it's like this whole weird thing. And I thought it was going to be like a little bit more complicated, I guess. I thought it was gonna get like more sticky in the end with like her best friend who's like kind of a bitch. Like her best friend, it's like one of those weird friendships between her and her best friend where like her best friend kind of like hates her and she kind of hates her best friend, but they still remain friends. And it's like, why are you friends with these people? I get it, you're in your early 30s, no, early 20s, and friendships and everything like that, relationships can be weird, but like, I don't know, it just felt weird. It felt like a weird story, and I don't know, everyone loves Sally Rooney, and I don't want to like write her off and be like, ooh, but like I feel like the characters that she writes are just she I don't know, she just loves like little age gap relationships, which I wouldn't necessarily like put this book on this list. This is technically like book 31. I'm halfway through it. I am reading Intermezzo right now, and that book as well, it has like it's about two brothers. One of them's a chess genius, one of them's a real hotshot lawyer, and you like follow their lives. But like the hotshot lawyer is like mid 30s, early mid 30s, and he's dating a university student. And then the other brother, the chess whiz fucking grandmaster brother, is like in his early 20s. He's like 23 or 22, one of those, and he is starts dating like a 36-year-old divorcee. So I don't know what the hell Sally Rooney's obsession is with like age gap relationships. I get it if it's to do with like the power dynamics to do with age gap relationships and everything like that, but it's like that's your niche. That's the niche you want to fall into. I don't know. Everyone loves Sally Rooney. It feels weird for me to say anything bad about her. I will say though, with Intermezzo, I'm only halfway through, but I'm up to this part. Spoilers, I don't know. This part where they're having it's like essentially a sex scene where the lawyer brother, the older lawyer brother, ends up like going to his ex-wife's house, and his ex-wife, ex-partner, I guess, they like broke up because she had some sort of accident, and she broke up with him because she was like, "Ooh, I'm so like sick and I'm in pain all the time with like my chronic illness after this accident. I don't want you to feel burdened by taking care of me." He comes over to like drop off some medication, and she's like, "Oh, just leave it at the door," and he's like, why? I have a key still. I'm gonna bring it in because you're being weird. He goes into the house and she's like laying on the floor in pain. It's like she's had a fall and like she's like thrown up on herself. She's like sweaty. She's in pain. And he's like, "How long have you been on the floor?" And she's like, like 10, 20 minutes. And it's like, okay, cool. So he ends up like helping her like get cleaned up and like getting her into bed. And then when they're in bed, he's like, "You still love me? I still love you." And then he's like, "Can I kiss you?" I'm like, this bitch was just like on the floor in pain. She was she was on the floor in pain. She couldn't get up. And now you've put her to bed and you're like, "Can I kiss you?" It's like so weird. Oh my god. And like I think she ends up giving either like a wristy, either either hand stuff or mouth stuff. I think she ends up doing mouth stuff on him. And I'm like, "Girl, you were just on the floor in pain. What are you doing? Why is this being written about?" And the fucking lawyer brother afterwards, he's like, "Oh, because you're so sick, do you reckon your tummy can handle some food?" And she's like, "Oh, some plain toast. I think I can only handle some plain toast." You had his in your mouth and you can only handle plain toast? You're so sick that you can only handle plain toast, but you put it in your mouth? He let you put your what he let you put his in your mouth? He let you touch him when you're that sick? Oh my god, it's so disgusting. I guess I've never been in that situation where someone loves me so much that they want to let me down when I'm like in sickness and in health. Like my boyfriend loves me, but I would not expect him to want to do that when I'm sick because he knows that I'm fucking sick. Why would I be? What? Who? Huh? I don't know. I'll keep reading Sally Rooney because it's interesting, and everyone else who reads it seems to be like intellectuals, and I want to be like them. And I feel like if I talk to anyone else who I know who reads Sally Rooney about this book, about Intermezzo, they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, I loved it," and I can't. I don't want to be the only person who says like what, because then I'll just feel like, oh, maybe I'm just stupid and I didn't get it because everyone else loves it, so therefore it must be really good. But I don't know. I don't know about Sally Rooney no more. The next book I read, I could not finish. It's I'm a Fan by Shayna Patel. It is about a woman who has a boyfriend who is cheating on her boyfriend with this other man who's I think married. So the married man's having an affair, she's having an affair, but then the married man ends up breaking it off with her and she becomes obsessed with him. So like she's already obsessed with him. She's dickmatized, if you will. She's obsessed with him and then she ends up getting obsessed with the married man's new girlfriend and like stalking her online and everything like that. And it just felt so stupid. I couldn't finish it because it felt so stupid. I don't understand what was so good about this man that this character was like pining over him and obsessing over him and obsessing over any new person that he ends up seeing. Like, I don't know, couldn't finish it because that's just not relatable to me. I would never. Next I read was Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. This book was interesting. It was like a domestic thriller type, domestic gothic type novel, and I liked it. It was very interesting. But you follow this insufferable friggin' main character whose mother-in-law had passed away. They had her and her husband had been like living with their mother-in-law. I think it was either like the mother-in-law's house. It was their house, I think, and then the mother-in-law came to live with them, but she was like an overbearing mother-in-law or whatever, like classic classic kind of thing, enmeshment type relationship with like the son and his mother, and the mom being like overbearing and everything like that. I just end up feeling bad for the husband. And I don't love a story where I end up feeling bad for a man. But God, this main character was mentally ill. She kept thinking, she kept like, I guess, pretending that she was pregnant. Like, like almost, I guess, to a manipulative way. Oh, sorry. The story itself is like a haunting story of like the mother in law dying, and then she ends up like, oh, she stole like a ring off of the mother in law's like finger as she was dying, like before the paramedics or whatever came to take her body out of the house, like when she was dying. She took the ring off of her finger, and there were so many opportunities for her to return the ring to her husband, and her husband is freaking out about the ring and being like, what do you mean the hospital doesn't have it? What do you mean the funeral home doesn't have it? My mother always wore this ring. She wore it all the friggin' time. You guys need to find it. I'm gonna sue you guys. Ah, like he was freaking out because it's like one added stress for him. And there were so many opportunities, and she's like talking about like, oh, I should have given back the ring. Yeah, you should have given back the ring as soon as you got to the hospital and they declare her dead. You should have been like, oh, by the way, I'm so sorry, I did this. I took the ring off of her finger because I was worried about the paramedics taking it or some shit like that. Like, the first chance she had to return that ring, she should have done it. And then the haunting itself wouldn't have happened, or like the perceived haunting wouldn't happen, because now that she has the ring and she hasn't returned it, she's like, oh my God, she's haunting me in the house because she knows it's gonna, she's haunting me because I took the ring and she hates me. Blah. I did enjoy the story itself. Like it felt fun, like a fun, scary little horror story. Um, but yeah, the mother in law, insufferable. The daughter in law, the main character, also insufferable. The husband, I felt bad for him in his little grieving stage, grieving his overbearing mother and, you know, coming to terms with that. I like that story. Last but not least, and my most recent read was Blue Sisters by Coco Malors. I'm sorry if that's not how you pronounce her name. I feel like everyone's talked about this. It's a book about like four sisters. Their surname is Blue, so they're the Blue Sisters. But one of them had died, and so we meet the sisters like one by one. They each get like a chapter each sequentially throughout the story, and yeah, we meet them on like the 1 year anniversary of the sisters passing. So you get to see like how they talk to each other and how they talk to their mother and like everything like that, and you know how the death had affected them obviously, and how the death has like pulled them apart and brought them back together and everything like that. I feel like the epilogue, I think, or the either the epilogue or the final chapter, I felt like that was unneeded. I didn't care. I didn't care to see them like where they would be in 10 years time. I think if it didn't have the epilogue, I would still feel satisfied with the story. And I feel like the epilogue was just like borderline fan fiction kind of thing. Like I didn't think it was needed, but I did think it was a very nice story. I think that the dialogue as well, like obviously these sisters are meeting again on like the 1 year anniversary, so it's like tensions I guess arising between the sisters. And I think that the any of the dialogue that was written between any of the characters, it felt natural. I don't know, the dialogue that was written in it, it felt so natural, and I would be really interested to know what other people take from that book after reading it, depending on like how many siblings you yourself as the reader have. Like I myself am one of three. I'm the youngest of three, so I did feel attached to Lucky, like the youngest sister. I was like, yeah, I see myself in her all the time. And so, you know, I think it would also be interesting to know like if you have siblings and what your birth order is, like who you end up relating to most, or um anything like that. I think it's very interesting, and I would recommend it. I liked it, and that is it. That is my failed attempt at my 2024 Goodreads reading challenge. I didn't read the amount of books that I wanted to read this year, or that I set myself the goal for, but I read the same amount of books as I had read last year. I think instead for 2025, instead of aiming for such a huge number of 45, I think I should just maybe, you know, aim for like 10% more, if that, maybe 35, 33 or 35. That might be the new goal that I'll set myself for next year. Um, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down below how many books you have read this year, whether or not you are on track to making your reading challenge, or even if you've beaten your reading challenge. Also, if you have recommendations for me, please let me know as well down below. I would appreciate it if you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, you don't have to, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for spending time with me. Bye!